Awesome. Moose, thank you for joining me here, man. We're episode 5. I know I said you're going to be episode 4, and then somebody beat you to the punch. I had an interview with them yesterday. So you're number 5. You're the last episode so that I can actually start releasing stuff, which is awesome. Cool. So thank you very much for being the person that got the podcast now over the line. Now it's my responsibility to start releasing things and not just hoard it to myself. But
I appreciate you having me, Dylan. It's good to be here, and like I said, good to finally connect with you. I know we've wanted to connect for some time, so appreciate you having me on.
But I think just for the sake of simplicity, give the hypothetical audience that there will be a quick rundown about who Moose Reed is. Is he the scary Canadian animal, the moose, or is he the guy that does the sales stuff?
A bit of both. I'm definitely an animal, right? Who's me? Moose. I've been in sales for the last 13 years now. I'm married. I have 2 pit bulls. I love my pit bulls. Currently, I'm a sales director for an international logistics company. What is that you're smoking?
It's just tobacco, man. It's on brand for the Sales Sleuth Podcast. It's in the logo.
I was like, no, this podcast is give me 5 minutes. Hang tight. I'm a sales director for an international logistics company. Also, a lot of people will see me in the high ticket space. I'm a sales recruiter. I build out sales teams, and as a fractional sales manager, a lot of small business owners hire me to manage their sales process.
Okay, cool. So tell us about the logistics thing. You and I had a little conversation about that. It's not really a field that you thought you'd ever end up in. And also it's not sexy, right? It's like selling cardboard boxes, but just at a bigger scale and made out of steel. So
yeah, exactly right. So it's imports, exports primarily. We primarily work from Shanghai trade lane to Long Beach, California, but our company's been in business for the last 50 years, so we have relationships globally. I assume what the audience probably wants to hear is, I never thought that I would get into logistics because, like you said, it's not fun. It's not sexy. I don't get jacked up about selling logistics, right? But as a salesperson, I do believe that you should have your passion, right? And then you should have what's going to make you money. They don't have to correlate, right? So someday, I would say my passion is football, and someday I will be a high school football coach. Unfortunately, coaching high school football doesn't pay you a ton of money. Right?
Yes, and it's how selfish of you to be driven by money, man. It's so weird that people be driven by money.
So until I do that, right, I'm going to go make as much money as I possibly can, and then I'll transition over to coaching football. So about 6 months ago, I was recruited from this high-ticket space that most of our viewers probably see me in, right? I was headhunted to go and be this sales director. Again, when I was on the interview with the CEO, he was telling me how the market had changed from pre-COVID to post-COVID, and prices of logistics had increased tenfold. And I was like, holy shit, that is one way to outpace inflation as a salesperson. So I'm in. That's what got me started in logistics.
Right. But there's also the question of the placement agency, right? I'm not sure what the company's name is that you do done for you closers, DFY
done for you closers. That's right. Yep.
Tell us a bit about that, right? Because that's probably what most people are going to be interested in. And I apologize if you get bombarded with messages of, hey, could you get me a job?
No worries. That's my day-to-day. So to give you an idea, Dylan, for the last 3 years, I've been recruiting salespeople for small business owners. I was recruiting sales. I was the head of recruitment for a very well-known company in the arena, right? And the game plan with the company was good, and it was strong, and it was working, right? The thought was, instead of charging on a commission-only basis, right, to the business owners, we would charge on a flat fee model, and that would secure that business owners that were cash flow positive would hire us, right? And it got to the point where we were hiring 100, 200 people a month. Over 3 years, me and my team had introduced over 3,000 sales professionals to small business owners. Every month I would post the top 10, and on the top 10, my top 10 reps in a given month might do $3.5 million in sales and make an average of $40,000 in commission per sales rep. It was pretty, crazy.
The dream for some people.
The dream, exactly, right? The problem that I found, though, was that by charging on a flat fee model, was whether it was 4K or 12K, which was a done with you sales management process, right? Anyone can finance that. You can finance 12K, no problem. Split it into 3 payments, and we're getting a lot of pre-revenue businesses that weren't ready for salespeople yet. And while the top 10 looked good, the 95% did not look good, right? So that's what got me open to new opportunities. Then at the same time, I got headhunted for this role in logistics, and it just happened to work out. Well, after I left, I had all the pieces that I had put together from my previous venture. I knew that business owners still wanted to hire me to build out their sales teams, right? But I changed the model, right? Done for you closers isn't something that I have to do. It's something that I like to do. It's not my full-time income. It's a very, very side income for me, right? And now what I do is I charge a traditional sales manager fee, right? I charge a high upfront retainer, right? To try and eliminate a lot of the pre-revenue businesses that can't afford to work with me. And then I charge a commission as well, right? And then instead of telling the business owner, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be the sales manager, I'm saying, get the hell out of my way.
Get out the way.
If you want to be involved in the decision-making process of your sales team, go hire somebody else because I don't need you. I turn away more business than I take on.
Right.
And that's my goal, right? Since I had stepped away, every big sales trainer in the space that you know me was hiring me on a consulting basis, right? On an hourly consulting basis. That was fun. But I was like, I think I'm just going to do this on my own. You know, so that's where Done For You Closers came from. We work with businesses, usually in the coaching consulting industry, that are doing 100. That's one of my requirements. They have to be doing over 100 grand a month. Their process is not to build out a sales team. It's that they want to be replaced as the sales manager. Right. Last month was our first month in business. We onboarded 15 salespeople. Right. Problem is, like you mentioned, I have a pipeline of 5,000 salespeople that I've introduced.
Yeah.
Right. I have a lot of very trusted relationships of people that that I've introduced on gigs that have done very well for me. Right. I have very, very few positions. Before it was the opposite. I had more positions than I had salespeople. Now it's more people.
It's the reverse. Yeah.
So
all right.
When people reach out, I can't fill it all.
Yeah, true.
But
but that does bring up the good question, right? Because there's a lot of talk about the importance of now networking to find your own sort of sales gigs and these types of things, and a lot of people are doing it poorly, right? I'm one of those people that just sort of stumbles forward and tries and does the whole networking thing, and sometimes people are open to talking, like you, and other people tell me to go fuck myself because what the hell are you doing reaching out to me? So on the question of assessing the businesses before you go and work, you mentioned one of the criteria being that they make at least 100,000. When you're thinking about working with someone to place a sales team there, because I agree with you, not everyone needs a salesperson. I've worked in businesses that don't need a salesperson. It's a nightmare because there's nothing in place. They can't really tell you what the hell they're expecting you to do. Just go sell is sort of the thinking, right? Not particularly good for anyone. So when you're looking at assessing a business to say, can I help them with the salesperson? What do you prioritize for? Like, what do you look for to know if it'll work?
Within the business?
And then we can talk about what you look for in salespeople, because they're probably going to reach out to you at some point.
So to simplify the question as much as possible, right? I think that what I look for in the business can be a little bit different than what the salesperson looks for in the business. I hope that's fair to say, Dylan.
Yeah,
right?
it's fine.
Because again, I'm looking for someone who needs a sales manager in the business, right? Not necessarily just a salesperson, right? So I'll touch on it from both aspects, right? From the sales manager position, I want strong cash flows. I want to make sure that they can afford my monthly retainer, right? I want to make sure that there's solid lead volume so that I can get a strong sales team in place, right? But I also want to make sure that they want to be out of the sales management process. So to give you an idea, one of the guys that we just onboarded, he's just doing amazing. He's great. He is in the middle of a 9-figure acquisition, right? And he had a team of 2 sales reps that were doing 200 grand a month in volume, right? They had a natural salesperson blowout where they were making 12 grand a month, spending 15 grand a month. They blew out, just a car sales guy, happens all the time, right? This guy, this client, he could have gone out and found his own sales guys and managed his sales team, no problem. Like,
Yeah.
it's a match made in heaven because he can do it on his own, right? But if he does it on his own, that's taking away from his 9-figure acquisition. This guy's in the middle of fundraising, millions and millions of dollars. He needs to go and concentrate on that fundraising.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the perfect client for me. He's like, I could go out and do this on my own and pay for it on a commission-only basis. I could hire a sales agency that's going to do it on a commission-only basis, but they don't have the sales management experience that you have. I'd rather just pay you. Like, is that cool?
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Obviously.
Right? And now we'll work great together because you know the struggles I'm going through, et cetera, right? From a salesperson's perspective, depends on a couple factors, right? Depends on your level of experience, and you have to recognize your level of experience, right? Is it okay to go in pre-revenue as a salesperson? I do think it's okay, right? But going in pre-revenue as a salesperson gives you is a higher upside, right? I've worked in multiple pre-revenue businesses. It gives you an opportunity to grow within the business. You can take on a sales director role. Also, you can capture the real play, which I was mentioning with John, right? The real play in this industry, if you're working with micro cap businesses, shouldn't be to be a forever salesperson, right? It should be to evolve to an equitable partner and then try and exit these businesses over a 36-month time frame. Right? You don't get that by being a sales rep who comes in as the 5th or 6th salesperson in. If you're the 5th or 6th salesperson in and you're doing $100,000 a month like everyone else, what's your value that's going to get you to partner? If you're the first salesperson on in a pre-revenue business, yes, now you have that opportunity. Now you have that.
Right.
Right.
And there's also an element of assess. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because I know that you mentioned that at some point, and there's a business element in there that people need to think about a little bit harder, because it's not just a case of, oh, well, any business that's pre-revenue is a good business for me to go get equity in.
Yes.
Probably not. Right. So when you're thinking about that type of thinking, right, what is that thing that a salesperson should look for? Because pre-revenue could mean that they have no CRM, they've got no sales process, they're trying to close any person that's coming through the door, and that's not always a good business practice. So when a salesperson needs to think about going in pre-revenue, what do you think they need to look for and ask for before saying, yes, let's do an equity deal on this thing?
So most salespeople who are going to be listening to this, Dylan, right, will usually be younger salespeople, newer salespeople, right? Salespeople who are trying to get their foot in the door, et cetera, right? And they're not looking at these businesses as equity deals like you mentioned, right? They are trying to get a sales job that will pay their bills, that will give them remote independence, right? And some time freedom back versus working a 9-to-5, right?
Yeah.
If that's what you are looking for, right? If that is you, then I would say don't go to a pre-revenue business.
Yeah.
Right? Then I would say find a business that's a bit more established. Problem is, a lot of salespeople will go to a recruiter, right? And they'll say, give me something that's established, right? And finding something established in this industry of high-ticket coaching, right? Or enrollment sales or agency, right? You're dealing in a world like we talked about the other day of micro-cap businesses, right? So it's like going up to a pimp and asking them for the cleanest hooker, right? And I need your cleanest hooker. Well, all of them are dirty, right? If you are a salesperson and you're hiding your fear of volatility by looking for something that's established, right? Then you're barking up the wrong tree. Ultimately, every hooker that you go to is going to be dirty.
Right.
Right? If you hear a business that's doing $2 million a month, that's a micro cap business, right? Big business is defined by a company that's doing $500 million a year.
Right.
Right? So a company that's doing $24 million, which is the top end of this arena, guys. It's the top end. That's a tiny, tiny, tiny micro cap business. I've seen guys who go from making $2 million a month, or businesses that are doing $2 million a month, to $500,000 a month overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Overnight, right? So
the overnight successes, yes.
The opposite, right? The overnight collapse,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
You're a sales rep and you're saying, hey, give me something established, and you're searching in the world of microcaps. They're not established because they are a microcap.
Mm-hmm. Right. So what would be then the advice that you would give for someone to go and look for something that's established? Because the tech sales thing has been sort of forefront on news, and people can make a whole bunch of money there in RepView, and now they did layoffs, right? So if someone is looking for the typical 9-to-5 space that still has some flexibility in that stuff, would they be looking more towards something like a corporate job or coaching stuff? Because I've done both, and the coaching stuff can be a flash in the pan. Like you said, they can go from 24 million to 500,000 in the blink of an eye, right? Yep. So what would be your tips for someone if they're like brand new? Would they be better served going to something established as a corporate job, or going to like a coaching thing where they reach out to someone like you to place them somewhere?
The best advice that I can give, Dylan, and I'll say this on your podcast and your listeners will hear it, but they won't listen to it, right? And that's okay. I don't mind saying it. I say this to salespeople all the time. If you are a new salesperson, the best thing that you can do, right? And this is from Mark Cuban. Have you ever listened to Mark Cuban at all?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So Mark Cuban says if he had to start over from scratch, he knows that he could become a multimillionaire again. He says, I don't know if I could become a multi-billionaire because becoming a billionaire takes a lot of luck, right? But he says, I do know that I could become a multi-millionaire. And the way that I was doing it, if I went from dead broke, or from where I'm at to dead broke, the way I would do it is I would work 2 jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would be a highly paid commission salesperson because that's where my strengths are, right? And I would be a bartender at night to reduce the volatility.
Right. Because there's an element of that.
The bartending is always going to pay your bills. It's always going to keep you fed. And then you would be a commission-based salesperson in addition to. There's nothing wrong with working a 9-to-5, especially now with how the market's going, Dylan, right? These bigger businesses are starting to enter the remote market for hiring. Yeah. Right? There's nothing wrong with working a 9-to-5, right? And then doing this in addition to it, right? What you should do if you're new is put 6 months reserves away. Make sure that your offer is stable enough. Make sure that you're there, and then go full time. With all the sales, with all the business owners I've ever onboarded, it's been about 150 at this point, right? I always tell the business owners, if you want a good salesperson, they will come on part-time to start, and they will transition over full-time once the opportunity proves to be doable.
Yeah.
But not before. If you want a shit salesperson, I can go find someone full-time right away.
Yeah.
I'll go search the unemployment line, no problem. Right? But when I was recruited to the space, I came from BlackRock, right? I was wholesaling mutual funds for the largest asset manager in the world. I wasn't going to turn down my 6-figure opportunity at BlackRock to go and work for a guy that was doing under $1 million a year.
Yeah, of course.
Like, you want me full time? Like, fuck you.
If you can match my salary, sure, but that's probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, right? But it only took me a couple months to say, "Oh, okay, this is legit." You know.
So that brings up an interesting conversation point, right? Because a lot of people will say that you need to go all into this thing. You're here doing the sensible thing of saying, well, realistically speaking, commission only has a lot of volatility, and it does, right? Depending on not even depending on what you're selling. If you're in a recession market like we find ourselves in now, people are spending money less, and that's why places like Twilio and who's some of the other big tech companies that did massive layoffs now, because people are they're not spending their money right now, right? They just don't have that risk appetite to just spend. So
I have a buddy who's a recruiter at Google, and they are on a hiring freeze.
Exactly.
His figures for sitting there. He can't hire anyone. His job is to hire people.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to.
So again, the reasonable thing here is that you're saying is don't go all in, even if it is something that, because you touched on something that's sort of like, go sell something that you're passionate about effectively, right? Because otherwise you're probably not going to enjoy doing the thing. You're not going to stay there very long, or at least you're going to stay there long and hate doing it every day. been in that seat, it sucks, right? You start to wonder whether you want to be in sales, right? Because is this thing even helping? But you also harped a lot about the stuff about having a base salary attached to some of the people. So when does a base salary and commission split make sense versus a commission only thing, right? So when should someone consider going for something with a base, and what does the difference between those two mean? Because commission only is very sexy. There's all this upside, but it's also very volatile.
Yep. So there's a couple routes that we can go here, Dylan. Really good question. I'm trying to figure out the best way to protect myself by saying this.
Okay, well, if it puts you in a bad spot,
no,
we can
not at all.
it.
Not at all. Not at all. This is a really good question. Okay. When should a sales rep pursue a base salary? There's two different segments that you should pursue a base salary. Okay. The first one is if you are an entry-level salesperson looking for your first sales job. That's the first time that you should look for a base salary. Okay. And again, it's complete opposite of what the marketplace will tell you. The marketplace will tell you you're new, so you don't get a salary, right?
Yes.
If you are new and you've never been in a sales job, I don't give a shit what sales training you've gone through. I don't care what your sales trainer told you. They're all lying because their job is to sell you sales training.
Yeah, that lovely little certificate that's so special.
It's not worth a shit. Like, guys, that's one of my rules when I'm hiring salespeople for business owners. Unless it's for a entry level role, I don't hire entry level people. So the first thing that I say is, show me your resume. Right? I take a look at the resume. I match them with the client that I'm hiring for. It's that simple, right? So, if you are brand new, you should be working outbound. Again, probably opposite from what your sales trainer that you bought sales training has told you.
Yeah,
right?
don't worry. They're all going to be inbound leads. For sure.
You should be going outbound. But because you're going outbound, you're paid more for your time than you are for your skill set, right? Yeah. So to be paid for that time, you should be paid accordingly for that time, right? Which gives you a salary. In this high ticket arena, you're going to be paid. The top end of the market pays $2,000 a month to their setters, right? Yeah. Base salary. There will be some people who say come and set on a per closed deal basis, right? On a commission only basis. Yeah. That's shit. For anyone who's doing that,
why is that shit? That's an important question, because that's been a thing that I've seen everywhere. Is you'll get a percentage on deals closed, but you still need to do all the activity. What?
So let's break down why, just for everyone that's listening. I thought that I would make this a post, and I haven't made it a post one day, but let's break it down. You ready? Let's say
here's your opportunity to make it a post.
Yes, exactly. Let's say it takes 8 hours to make 100 dials, right? From outbound dials. A strong conversion for a setter is going to be 1 to 2%. Again, I don't care what your sales trainer told you. A strong conversion that's cold call to booking appointment is going to be 1 to 2%. So let's say you're a great setter and you're getting a 2%, right? That means that you've set two appointments in that workday on 100 dials, right? Could you get through more than 100 dials? Absolutely. But the way that you're getting through more than 100 dials is it means that you're not getting answers, right? You have a lower pickup rate. You can get 300 dials in a day and have a 0.5% booking rate. Guys, concentrate on 100 dials a day and getting your 1 to 2 appointments. Yeah. That's the name of it. Okay? Right. So let's say you get 2 appointments, right? At the end of the week, you have 10 appointments. Let's use that as our data set, right? That took you 40 hours. Let's say of those 10, you have a normal show-up rate, 7 of them show up. Let's say your sales team is firing on all cylinders and they're converting at 2%. I know that your sales trainer told you people were going to close at 50, 60, 70%. They lied again. Yeah. A team that's in KPI should be at 15 to 25%. Anything that's over 25% has room to increase price.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
That means you got 2 deals, right? Let's say you make $200 per closed deal. Means you made $400 that week, right? But what's going to happen is if most of it is commission only, right? And most opportunities that are commission only, you're going to go weeks and weeks without income. You're going to have some weeks where people show up, where 5 of your 10 show up, or 4 of your 10 show up, and 0 get converted, or 10 out of 10 show up and no one sells because you put shit on the calendar, right? It happens all the time.
Yep.
Now you've made $0, right? Your dollar per hour is just trash. So the $400, right? Divided by the 40 hours, you made $10 an hour.
Yeah. Which is technically below living wage in most scenarios. You could go make more flipping burgers.
Make more from McDonald's.
Yes. The reality often stings, right? But
it does.
Who do you typically see being the person that posts things like commission-only setter roles? If you're coming in as a new person, and I've seen this in sort of the tech space as well, is if you come in as an SDR, you're going to be doing a shit ton of work that's not exactly enjoyable, but you're at least being compensated for the monthly time, and then in addition to that would be a commission side to that, right? So who do you see being the people that would post something like, no, just coming commission-only as a setter?
Usually businesses that are not qualified to hire salespeople. Right? They're usually businesses that are like, hey, I have a great idea for a business. If only I had the best salesperson in the world, gosh, my business would be making a ton of money, right? Well,
of course.
Yeah, if only I had, Peyton Manning as my quarterback and Deion Sanders as, my cornerback. If I only had Hall of Famers on my team, we would make a ton of money. So, but unfortunately, Peyton Manning isn't paid only on his wins either.
Yeah, true. So that also segues quite nicely into the space of like bigger corporate stuff and these hiring freezes that are happening. Because again, if you're not the highest performing salesperson, they're most likely going to lay you guys off, right? So what would be your advice to somebody who's now trying to break into this market in a less than ideal time? Because if you listen to the sales trainers, it's like, well, sales people are always going to be in demand regardless of the economic conditions. Again, that's probably just because they're trying to sell you sales training.
That's right.
It's not the reality of economics. So what would be your advice to someone that's going to be looking at getting into an entry-level sales role, but most companies are going onto a hiring freeze and laying off people? What would be your advice to someone in that scenario?
The first thing that I would do is I would look into what industries are performing, right? And again, Dylan, this goes well into the conversation that we started this with, right? The reason I went into logistics in, a time of COVID is because logistics was overperforming in the time of COVID, right? So as a salesperson, if you know what industries are performing, yes, salespeople will be needed within that field, right? But you have to be willing to put in the groundwork, and you have to be willing to put in the grunt work. So to give you an idea, we call our setters inside salespeople in logistics, right? To compare that to what we just talked about, before this call started, I was on a meeting with my inside sales rep, right? She's paid a $50,000 base salary, right? Plus, she's paid $25 per set appointment that she makes, right? Plus $250 per deal that gets closed that she sets, right? When she sets more than 30 appointments per month, everything gets an accelerator on it. She goes from 25 appointments, right? Or $25 per appointment to $50 per appointment, right? And her $250 per closed deal goes up to $350 per closed deal, right? So on the low end, if she performs terribly, she'll make about 80 grand this year, right? Yeah. On the high end, she'll do about 110.
Right, and these are the numbers that people tend to romanticize because they think that it's always just going to go really well all the time. It's not.
Yep, exactly, right? So there's always going to be an industry that is performing well. And this goes back to what we said earlier. I would rather sell something that's in high demand than sell something that's sexy, right? I'll go and coach high school football because that's what I'm passionate about when it's time to coach high school football. But in the meantime, right, I'm going to go make as much money as possible. So if you look at I know online you're going to see people that make 30, 40, 50, 60, $100,000 a month, right?
Yeah, because everybody posts the stuff that's the massive wins all the time. Because social media is reality, obviously.
But Google will tell you that the top income earning sales reps globally last year were selling Google Cloud services. Not a sexy industry.
Yeah.
Right? But if you want to be a top income earning sales professional, I would go to where the top income earning sales professionals are. Not where people are telling you that they are,
with the
but
data
where the
says.
data actually shows that you are, right? The median income in that space was like $420,000. Hence why I now have a friend who's a recruiter at Google, and I know that they're on the hiring freeze. I was like, oh shit, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, this segues nicely into something like a rep view, right? Because these are they're tracking things like tech related stuff, and that's another topic that I want to talk to you about. Because the tech stuff feels like it was a bit of a bubble. A lot of people were making a whole bunch of cash, and now recession hit, and people are spending less money on tech. So technically, it's a high performing space. Because I mean, you go look at the data that they have on RepView, and the guys are making like 200 to 300,000 on target earnings, effectively.
Yeah.
But what do you see happening in that space? Because that's technically a high performing industry. But what do you think is the future for that? Has it sort of peaked out, and now it's going to plateau into something a little bit more stable? Was it a flash in a pan that was really awesome for 2 years and then not anymore?
If I could predict the future 100%, I probably wouldn't be in sales. I would just buy stock in where I thought it was going to go. But what I can tell you is this, Dylan. With what I see happening, with having a background at BlackRock, right? I'm always watching the global markets, right? Tech, yes, tech purchasing, CRMs, etc. That's going to slow down, especially as we get more and more deep into this recession, right? Going into the SaaS space, selling CRMs, etc. That's going to slow down, right? But what's probably going to ramp up with things that are happening with China and with Russia and with North Korea, right? What would probably increase is going to be tech security, software
cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, right? That's probably going to be a great market to sell in. Everyone's exposed right now. We're in a really, really weird time, and Elon Musk proved this with I think his business is called Datalink. Is that right?
It's not Neuralink. You're talking about the import thing.
Neuralink. It's his internet provider.
Oh yeah. I think it's Datalink. I'm not sure, but yeah. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Musk's internet. Anyways, Starlink.
Yeah.
Starlink, right? We're in this really weird time where corporations have gotten to the point where they are big enough to make political decisions.
That's an interesting
right? Have political impact, right? Like, you know, when things broke out with Ukraine, Elon Musk, I'm not getting one way or the other politically, right? But I'm just saying what happened, right? Elon Musk was able to provide internet to the Ukrainians and was able to provide resources to the Ukrainians because his business just said, I've got enough money to do it.
I've got the cash, yeah. I've got the GDP of like two small countries, obviously.
The opposite just happened last week, right? Last week he went in and tried to make decisions with Putin because again, he has the cash. He's able to do it. He's like, if I want to call Putin, I will. Like, what are you going to do, right? So where I'm going with this, right, is that certain segments will still do well. It's not going to be – not everything is going to crash at once.
Yeah, true.
Right? In 2008, it was really bad time to sell houses, really bad time to sell mortgages, really bad time to be in finance because all asset classes were crashing, right? I'm sure there was something doing well in 2008.
I'd imagine so. Yes. Some research that I read was that the things that do quite well during recession periods are education related stuff, things that can protect your finances effectively, those types of things.
Yep. What I could see happening in our space of our high ticket arena, our coaching industry, is I would see that people make their last like Hail Mary into like, hey, I need a coaching program that's going to help me start an Amazon coaching business, whatever the fuck, right? Yeah,
coaches teaching people how to be coaches.
And there's going to be an influx of cash into the industry in a short period of time. But I think that most of the business owners in our arena are terrible with cash management, and they're going to expect that influx of cash is a new norm, and they will collapse because of over leveraging themselves.
That's an interesting chat. Because again, I had this conversation with somebody, I think that you know her, Angela Keys, I think. I think you placed her somewhere. And she and I spoke about these sort of coaching program stuff that will do really well over a 3 or 4 month period and then collapse because they've over leveraged themselves, right? So they've seen a massive growth. Yeah. Case, sorry. So we spoke about that, right? Because coaching packages have a shelf life, which sounds weird because it's a coaching package, but economics will mean that sometimes people don't spend money on coaching unless it's a verifiable means of education, right? And verifiable means university degrees, which are stupid expensive now. But that does bring up the next question, because I've noticed and worked in both scenarios where because I want to talk about the technology that makes a salesperson perform well, right? Because this is not something that I think people talk about a lot. You can go work really hard. We spoke about having the grit and going to do the grind and doing the 100 dials and that type of stuff. But what do you think is necessary from a tech standpoint, like sales enablement and support, in order for a salesperson to do well? At the very least, the CRM would be my sort of starting off point. But what do you think is necessary for a salesperson to go perform well, so that if they go into an interview and can ask for, do you have these 3 or 4 things? What are those things that you think they need?
So people always think, and this is what all sales trainers teach, sales trainers always teach that the most persuasive salesperson is the best salesperson. Mm-hmm. And that is so far from the truth, right? Mm-hmm.
Sell ice to Eskimos type of person. Sell ice to Eskimos type of person, man.
Again, there's no demand in it, right? Like, of course. Sure, if you can sell ice to an Eskimo, it's going to take you 1,000 people to find that Eskimo who's willing to buy the ice, right? So I'd rather go and find a market where 10 out of 10 people need it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the most efficient salesperson will make the most money, right? Mm-hmm. As far as what tech they need, absolutely need a CRM, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely must have a CRM, right? What you're going to see most experienced sales reps do is have a CRM and they don't manage it. Right? Most sales reps will go in and they will tell their business owner that they need a CRM. They'll get a CRM, and then they just don't ever use it because they think that they have a golden tongue where everything that they say just gets people to buy, and they're like, "Oh, I don't use a CRM," right? Mm-hmm. Then the tech stack that you need outside of that, I'll try and go more general before going more specific, mm-hmm. right? Definitely have a call recording software, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a good CRM, usually you can integrate the tool. Yeah. Integrate the two, right? Mm-hmm. So with a lot of my done-for-you closers clients, we use Go High Level. Mm-hmm. And with Go High Level, we can integrate the call recording. Yeah,
it's built in. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. I recommend having a communication channel with the business that you are in. So mm-hmm. for that, I use Slack.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we've got Slack, we've got the CRM, call recording software. I like to recommend, this is not necessarily a need to have, but a want to have, right? Mm-hmm. Some type of data tracker, right? I do this through an Excel personally, right? Mm-hmm. But through the Excel, it gives me a lot more speed than when I'm trying to collect macro data than when I'm trying to source information through my CRM. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right? So I can know where I'm underperforming, et cetera, by looking at that macro data. So that's what I recommend. Mm-hmm. But as far as more developed, did you have anything there? Sorry.
No. Go ahead. You want us to go sort of general and now a bit more specific. So be specific.
Going more specific, guys. I believe that data is key, mm-hmm. right? And data will point you in the direction that you need to go. So the more tools that you have that designate you to the data that you need in order to make sales, the better, right? To give you an idea, in our logistics company, we use a cool software called DataMine, mm-hmm. right? Instead of cold calling the white pages of people that might be potential prospects, right? In DataMine, I can source all imports into the U.S. over the last X amount of years, mm-hmm. right? I can look up which freight forwarder they were using, which are competitors of ours, right? Mm-hmm. And then we can just cold call that list and say, hey, what problems are you running into? We can watch the news and figure out, oh, this company's been hacked, so cargo has been lost, right? Mm-hmm. Then we can call and say, hey, I see that you're using this company. They were recently hacked. Has your ship been lost? Right? So mm-hmm. it's a super aggressive way to sell. But again, it gives me a lot more clear data versus cold calling saying, hey, do you want to hear about what I have?
Yes, which also brings up the next point of the whole us to Eskimos thing, right? Because working in lead generation, right? Everybody thinks that just because a person has expressed interest that they're a good lead. So as a salesperson, that's not always true. So when you're thinking about having sales conversations, I know that you're not really the person that does the sales calls for people anymore, but you manage those teams, right? So when you guys are thinking about targeting people, especially for cold calling and cold outreach, how important is the qualification criteria and how specific does it need to be? Because that means possibly a smaller list.
Yes. So it's really funny when you get started in logistics. I got to keep coming back to logistics just because it's top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
But in logistics right now, right, we have a couple of different. Well, we have lead sources, right? We have inbound leads and then we have outbound. But the inbound, because of the services that we offer, they could be very low quality. And when I say quality, it's not like the space of high ticket sales where you think of, oh, they don't have the cash to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they have the cash to spend. It's that we don't offer the services that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Someone needs an export from the US to Timbuktu. We don't do that. Right.
Yeah.
So they come in with very high intent, but very low quality. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If I create a list out of our data software, data mine that we just talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can be 100% qualified,
mm-hmm.
but have very low intent.
Mm.
So if you have a good sales team, you have a sales process in place, it's working both. My outside salespeople will typically work the inbound leads with intent,
mm-hmm.
and my inside sales team, the setters, will typically work the low intent people with high qualification.
Mm-hmm.
In the high ticket sales industry, just to come back to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the argument that we get into with business owners every day. They're like, I have leads.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you track whether those leads are good leads or bad leads,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to give you an idea, the client that I'm currently working with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I asked before we got started working together for his applications over 90 days of purchases,
Mm-hmm.
right? In an application, you're going to get probably, let's call it 10 questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first is going to say something along the lines of, what's your email, right? What's your
Mm-hmm.
phone, right? What business are you a part of?
Mm-hmm.
What type of business are you trying to grow? But then there will be binary questions where people can select yes or no. Are you going to show up on time, right? Do you have funds to invest in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people will say all the time, oh, this person put that they don't have any funds to invest. That's a terrible application,
Mm-hmm.
right? So instead, what I did was I took the applications over the last 90 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
I eliminated all questions that were non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
So email, name, what business you're a part of, I don't give a shit about all that. It's all subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the questions that were binary, right, I gave a score to. So one of the questions is a financial qualifier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you making this much? Are you making that much? This much? 5 answers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That question has a score possibility of 0 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So 0 to 4. Then it's will you show up on time, which is 0 to 1, right? Mm-hmm. Are you ready to invest in yourself or are you dead broke? 0 to 1, right? So we ask them a second qualification. I forget what the fourth one is. Mm-hmm. Could you handle an influx of leads? 0 to 1, mm-hmm. right? So in total, that application has a score of 7,
mm-hmm.
right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Following.
0 to 7. So question 1 was 0 to 4. Question 2, 0 to 1. 3, 0 to 1. 4, 0 to 1. 4, 5, 6, 7. So 4 binary questions that bring us to a total output of 7. What I found was the average purchaser had a score of 3.5 over the last 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then we have a 3-tiered offer on this product. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I segmented it out by product. And what I found was that we have a $250 product. The average score on that one was a 2.5. We have a $3,000 product. The average purchase on that one was a 3.5. Mm-hmm. And we have a $6,000 product. And the average purchase on that one was a 4.5. Mm-hmm. Right? So anything that is 2 or below is disqualified. We send them a disqualification text and say, hey, you can reconsider this, but from the answers that you put on your application, it doesn't look like this is the time for you to move forward with this. Mm-hmm. They'll do one of 2 things. They'll either say you're right, sorry for wasting your time, or they'll say you're wrong, please reconsider me. Either way, we win, right? Yeah. As a salesperson, I've given their time back, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. But the second thing it does is if they are a 3, right? And we know that the average purchase on the $3,000 product is a 3.5, then we know that we need to push them to the $3,000 product, but most likely in a 2-pay, in a payment plan, because they're under that 3.5. Or we will use the drop to the 250. If they come through and they are a 5, that means that they should be a no-brainer for the 5,000 or for the 6,000.
For the 6,000,
because the average score was a 4.5, right? So again, if you get into battles with these business owners, telling them this lead is unqualified, this lead's not unqualified, nobody has a true metric on how to run it. If you get an app scoring process like this in place, I don't give a shit if they put a 0 on the financial qualifier, if they marked all the other answers as 1s, and we get to a 3, right? That shows that they should be pushed to the $3,000 product.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're telling the business owner that the leads are unqualified and they're not hearing you, it's because you don't have a clear system in place for it.
Right. It almost sounds like the data matters in sales and it's not just all about personality. Who'd have thought?
That's exactly right.
So weird, right?
That's exactly right.
But that does open up an interesting side of this, because I've noticed that there's this, I'm probably not the only one that's noticed this, but there's this weird animosity between the sales and the marketing function. Like they're two individual teams and they should just hate each other because, I don't know, deep-seated like generational hate or whatever the case might be for sales and marketing people. But how do you think those two... Exactly, fuck marketing people. They just give us bad leads. But anyway, so that opens up the discussion. How do you think those two should integrate? Because this is something that you've mentioned, of looking at the data from the past and saying, well, if somebody has a lead score of 3 or 4 and higher, that means that they have the likelihood of being a $6,000 package. And if you're planning on prioritizing and selling more of those, it's likely going to lead to marketing. So how do you integrate those two? How should the sales and marketing team communicate with each other to make sure that there's a seamless buyer journey for the right types of prospects?
Yep. What I tell my sales team all the time is that if sales and marketing are working cohesively, right, then you should be able to relay information that will help marketing, right? Obviously, there's always going to be a push and shove between sales and marketing because they have inverse goals, right? Their goals are to put as many leads on the calendar, and sales' job is to put filter out as many leads as possible. People think that their job is to put deals on the board. Their actual job is to filter out as many leads as possible.
It's an interesting point of
view. So, with sales and marketing, if they are working cohesively, hang on one second.
No problem. At least you're not doing it live, right?
Just got a message.
It's all good.
Sorry, guys. Just finishing. Sorry.
It's all good. We're almost done. It's all good.
Yeah, no worries. But if they're working cohesively, if you hear something once on a sales call, you're going to hear it many times, right? If you hear something many times, that means that the market is telling you it, right? So you should be able to revert that story back to marketing so that they can use it as a spearhead on their marketing efforts, right? I'll give you a direct example. Yesterday, we were closing a deal in logistics. They import shopping carts from Shanghai, right, to California. They sell those shopping carts to a big box retailer. Right now, if you're watching the news at all, there's lots of issues happening in the truck, in the train, rail. It's called rail, right? But trains domestically, right? So if this client has their cargo delivered late because it's coming by train, the retailer that buys from them, the Walmart or whatever, penalizes them by 10%. That's a big problem because their margins are 10%. So now they are selling inventory to them at a loss if it arrives late, right? Perfect client for us because now we can solve that rail issue for them, put them on a truck, get the cargo to the consumer faster, right? But because we heard it once, we will hear it many times. So I went back to the marketing department and said, hey, we need to relay this information back to our email list so that we can find more clients that are in the same predicament.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah. So the most common objections would be something that you put into sort of market-facing communication, so that you're
Yes.
saving your salespeople's time by wasting the marketing people's time, because fuck marketing people, they can waste their time. But anyway,
That's right.
but
That's right. In
yeah.
the high ticket space, like just to use another example, I've been on offers where people need to keep on. They say, "Hey, I got to pray about this," blah blah blah. Right? Well, cool. They say that they need to pray about it. Right? We sent out a marketing email blast to the list saying, "Hey guys, thank goodness Noah didn't need to pray about it before building the ark." Right?
Yeah, interesting.
And that should take the objection away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a really tough objection to overcome from a salesperson, right? So take it out in the marketing effort.
Yes.
If you're targeting a religious list or whatever, right? Get rid of it.
Address it sooner rather than later, right? What's the expression, most battles are won before you even go onto the field, is effectively the same thinking. But Moose, I see that you're getting really busy, so we're also at the end of the time. So I want to give you the last 5 to 10 minutes or so to freeform. Where can people find you? Who should find you? Who should be the person that finds you? And like, what should they go follow about you?
So, salespeople, you can find me on my Facebook page all day long, right? Moose Reed, look me up. There aren't too many Moose Reeds out there, so feel free to reach out to me there. Cool. I just cleared that up. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Sorry,
it's all good.
One of my sales reps is reaching out with a fire.
It's all good. It's all good.
Find me on there. Business owners, also feel free to reach out to me on there. Guys, I try and be an open book. So my cell phone's on there. Feel free to call me, text me, introduce yourself to me. I had a prospect who introduced himself to me via text message yesterday. That's cool. I typically won't blow anyone off. The only way that I'll blow you off is if you say, "Hey, Moose, I'm looking for a job," right? Because I have 5,000 salespeople in my pipeline and I'm hiring 10 to 15 roles a month. It's all about speed of when you see me post, right? And the value add that you are going to bring to me. Like, how do I know that you are not going to flake if you are a salesperson listening to this call? If you're a business owner and you reach out to me and you say, "I need salespeople," I'll probably blow that off, right? I need to know why you're a strong business owner to work with me, right? I have enough people asking me to build out their sales teams, and this isn't my top priority. So if I know why you're a good prospect, then I want to jump on a conversation with you. And I hope that's fair to say. It's a little bit rude, but
it's okay. It's okay to be rude, right? This is a weird thing, but without getting into the politics, it's like the thing that you need to be very friendly to everyone and have conversations. Like, you don't. We all have a finite amount of time to talk to people, and you don't really want to talk to people that you can't help. That's just reality, right? So I appreciate you coming onto the podcast, and now I can start posting. So thank you very much for being that push.
I appreciate you having me, Dylan. And to use that as an example, guys, the way Dylan started a conversation with me, like, it wasn't asking anything of me. In fact, it was conversational. I think you made a joke with me starting out, didn't you?
I think so. I make so many jokes. I just hope one of them sticks.
Yeah, he made a joke, and I was like, "Oh, that was funny." And then he reached out and was like, "Yo, I would love to get you on a podcast too." I was like, "Cool, that's of value to me. I'm trying to create some content, so yeah, let's definitely have a conversation." Now we have a relationship, right? If there's ever anything that you're looking for, anything I can do for you, let me know, Dylan. Like, totally cool.
Cool, man. The what was it? The Trojan horses worked, is what I'm going to say now. Got in. It's all good now. But cool, man. I appreciate you coming on board. I'll send you through. Man. I'll try and get as many of the social stuff linked in the descriptions and YouTube stuff, and like, subscribe, all those other shill things that people need to do. But thank you again. I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dylan. Awesome meeting you, and we'll be in contact soon. All right.
Cool. Cheers, Moose.
See you, brother. Take care.